Team 1. Breach, breach, breach.
You're listening to Breach Your Mind. Hey guys, welcome back to Breach Your Mind. I hope everything's going well with you today. Today's episode is going to be a listener request, and it actually ties in really well in general with the fact that it's the first episode we put out in a few months now. We've had the holidays that came on there in December, and then life got in the way. I say got in the way, life just kind of happened. And between work and family and friends and hobbies, the old podcast here got put on the back burner for a little bit. And this listener reached out, and one of the things that they were hoping to get a little advice on was about balance. And that ties in really well with what's happened over the last few months as far as why there's been no recent podcasts coming out. And it was about balance. And so here we are. We're going to be talking about balance today. And I'm sure that this person's not the only one that, is maybe looking for a little advice on balance, or, isn't going through something right now. So I'm going to do my best to kind of touch on the things that they were talking about, and hopefully I can help them. And in that same respect, I can help someone else too. So what is balance? What is balance in our normal lives, in our everyday lives? What is balance? In terms of what we're talking about today, we're not talking about your physical balance. There's no balance beams here. We're just talking in general on essentially spreading out your time and your attention to the different aspects in your life, and in particular, family, career, and love life. So obviously, all of these things kind of affect each other. Your family, your love life, and your career are constantly intertwining with one another. And because of that, they also have an effect on each other. Careers affect love lives all the time. Careers affect families. Likewise, families and love lives can affect your career. So it's something that, and honestly, it's worth taking a little time to look at yourself and figure out how you want to spread that time, how you want to spread that energy. Balance is one of those things that it's going to constantly shift around. And by that, I mean, one of those three in particular at times is going to get more. It's going to get your career is going to get more time and attention than your family or your love life, or your family is going to get the time and attention. And that's okay. It's okay that those things swap around. That's kind of how life works. Life changes, our goals change, our focus changes. And with that, that balance is also going to change. And they're going to change based off of, how you're ranking them at the time. How you rank what's most important at the time. And it may be dependent upon what your goals are as far as career, or your life in general, or your family, or your love life. How you rank those things is gonna, change where your balance is. If your family and your love life are good, but you need to, accomplish a goal when it comes to your career, whether it's, learn a new skill, or, do an apprenticeship somewhere, or if you're just simply trying to move up the ranks in your company, that balance is going to change. There may come a time where you need to devote more time and attention and shift that balance towards your career so that you can achieve that goal. If your goal is to have a family vacation, or simply reconnect your family, especially in this digital age. I know that can be a thing. I've got a friend of mine that they actually practice in their home, no electronics, meaning they go times where they're not even, they don't even have so much as have a TV on in the house. And that's just so the family can reconnect. The kids can play together, or the parents can play with the kids, or whatever the case may be, but they want to move away from having so much digital time, so that's where their balance is. So your balance and the ranking system and everything is all going to change as time goes on. And it can also be one and the same. I guess you can maybe put it that way. I know early on in my career, especially early on in my career, my wife and my family in general would probably say that the bulk of my time and energy, where my balance was my career was holding the lion's share of my time and energy. And that it was always about the job. The job was always coming first. And I would argue that that was not the case. Obviously, I can't help how somebody else perceives things. But in that respect, as far as my time goes, yeah, my career, especially early on, definitely took more of my time. We were a single income family when I first started into my career. And even in today's age, if you're single, a single income can, put quite the burden on an individual. But when you've got a family, it can be exponentially more difficult when you're a single income family. And that's what we were when I first started out. And so a lot of my time got devoted to my career. I was picking up extra shifts. I was working, as much off duty as I could, because the more of that I did, the more money I could bring home to better support my family. And that's what I wanted to do. That's how I was raised. It was my job to do that. And that's what I was going to go do. So my career at the time got the bulk of my balance. If you want to talk about it in numbers and percentages, 60-40. The career got 60, and I had to split the 40 between the love life and the family life. But to them, that's how it seemed. But to me, it was just me upholding how I was raised, which was being the one that supported my family. Now, in saying that, and to be fair to their perception, I did during that time, take steps to make sure that in my career, I would also benefit. It wasn't my goal, but if I was going to be there, I might as well do something to make me a better asset to my agency. So I took that time to also do that. Now, that was me. That's not everybody. There are some individuals that their family or their love life will take the back burner so that they can focus solely on their career. There are some individuals that will stay single until such time that they feel they've got their career under wraps. So obviously it is a little bit different for them. Their balance is shifted more towards their career then than their family and their love life. But for me, I just chose to benefit as much as I could from it while still upholding how I was raised. So that was where I was at that time. Now, as I've gotten older and matured more and have been in my career for as long as I have, the balance is shifted away some. Now I am definitely about spending more time with my family. I'm definitely about spending more time on my hobbies and things like that. And because I do have a family, obviously my love life is intertwined with that. So I'm making sure that, I do as much as I can to spend my time with my wife and with my kids. And the career is definitely the one that gets the smaller percentage nowadays. It's not to say that I don't put the same dedication towards my career that I did starting out, but because of other aspects in my life, now I can have that opportunity because of the work that I put in to begin with. I now have the time to spend more with my family, spend more with my wife, with my kids and my grandkids. So that balance is now shifted. It's shifted, just like we were talking earlier, and how it will shift. Mine shifted. The career was able to shift back to the lower percentage side, while my family got the percentage it should have been getting the whole time, or at least in my opinion, it should have been getting the whole time. And I guess in talking about that, that's kind of the downside to it. When all of them intertwine together like that so seamlessly, and obviously there's going to be some side effects from it. There's going to be some negativity with it. The conversation has come up on more than one occasion between my wife and I about my job always taking the first position. I obviously, like I said earlier, I didn't feel that way, but to her, that's how it seemed. And with that, I missed out. I missed out on time with her and time with the kids. And, I had to deal with that. As old as I am now and looking back on my career, and I've said this to my kids and I've said this to friends and coworkers, I look back over my career and I've missed a lot. I missed a lot with my kids. I missed a lot with time with my wife. And to me, because of how I value things, that's more of a negative. That's a negative side effect to how that balance was earlier on in the beginning of my career. I regret that I don't have the same time now with my kids. I don't have the time that I have now with my kids back then. That's what I'm trying to say. I regret that I don't have that now. Obviously there's nothing I can do to change that, but the career did take a lot from me. When you're working a public safety job, that is often the case for most. The job, the career is to be there for everyone else. And often enough, it's our family that pays the biggest price for that because we're not there. And that's not just in general. That's holidays, birthdays, school events, sports, everything that goes on in life, depending on how that balance is, that's the stuff that you miss. And it's going to happen, especially those of us in the public safety community, individuals that work shift work. You work a 12-hour night shift. There's time you're going to be missing with your family there because, while they're awake, you have to sleep. So it sucks, guys. I mean, there's no other way around it. There's no other way to put it. It sucks when that happens. Now, I work with some amazing individuals that they do really well, at least in my opinion, in making sure that they don't have the same regrets that I do. And I say regrets, that's how it feels for me. I don't know if anybody else would feel that way, but I know that's how it feels for me. It's a regret. I don't know. But those coworkers that I have, and friends, they do a really good job at it. They do a good job at making sure that they're at every single function that they possibly can. They try to make sure they're at as many family functions as they possibly can, whether it's a holiday or a birthday party or a wedding for a family member. I wasn't necessarily that way. I tried when the times that I was off. I was obviously trying to be there as much as I could, and there was times where I missed plenty of sleep just so I could do those things. But they do it differently, and I'm actually glad. That I'm in a position that I can help them do that. And it's because I know how it went for me that I'm able to do that now. And I didn't say that to make it seem like I'm the reason they can, because obviously those individuals that are that dedicated to it, they're gonna find a way for it anyway. I'm just glad that I'm in a position that I can help with it. But that balance is what helped me get to that point. Like I said, I made sure that since I was having to be at work as much as I was and everything like that, I made sure that I was going to benefit from it career-wise as well. I was already there. I might as well put in the dedication and the work to make myself that better asset. The downside was, I missed out on a lot of time with the family. If you're one of the individuals that's sitting around thinking about it, or hadn't thought about it, maybe you are now, figure out what's important to you, what's important now. If your family is important and you don't see ever changing that, then you're going to have to figure out where you want to take the rest of that time from. It's going to have to come from one. Obviously, like I said earlier, there's other categories you can throw in there when it comes to balance, or if you want to break it down into subcategories. But if we're just talking about these three: family, career, and love life, one of them's got to suffer, at least one of them. If two intertwine seamlessly, like family and love life, the career is the one that has to take the fall on that. Now, it doesn't by any means mean that you can't be successful. It doesn't mean that you can't accomplish things or anything like that. Quite the contrary. It just may take you longer to get there. And if you're that individual that is completely okay with that, then hey, there's nothing wrong with that in the world. Not everybody's going to go out and be Elon Musk. Pretty much anybody is not going to go out there and be Elon Musk. But there's plenty of successful people that that got where they are now, and they could have done it faster, but their focus was elsewhere, and it just took them longer to get there. But they're there, and that's all that matters. It's about what's important. Like I said, my family would argue that my career always came first, and I, would argue separately. My career only came first because, especially at the time, I had to. In saying that, and when it didn't have to, it still took me a few years to switch out of that, but it eventually did. To me, my family was always the most important. That's the whole reason why I was sacrificing so much, why I was sacrificing my time away from my kids and my wife, because I was trying to provide a better life for them in the manner of how I was raised. There's plenty of people that would argue, well, just because you're bringing, more money into your family, that doesn't mean you're giving them a better life because you're a part of it. And you know what? You're 100% correct. 100% correct. But also, if I wasn't the one that was putting that out there, things would have been a lot harder for my family. And quite honestly, I would have felt like a failure. And that's one thing that I never want to do. I don't want to feel like I failed my family You know, even now when most of my kids grown, I still worry about failing them. You know, I worry that I'm going to fail my kids. I worry that I'm going to fail my wife. So I work, you know, I do the work to make sure that I don't, because that's where my balance in my life is. You know, that's where mine is. I want to make sure that that family aspect is 100% covered. Of course, we were talking about percentages, so I guess saying 100% covered doesn't really work out too well for the math on that. But yeah, so figure out what's important to you, figure out what your goals are, and find out how you can balance that time. You know, like I said, it's not always going to be perfect. It's not going to be that 33.33% perfect when you're talking about those three areas. It's not going to be that perfect. If it is, great, perfect. You were doing something that I would imagine a lot of people can't. But you've got to figure it out, and then you got to move towards it. And like I said, for me, those three things all kind of intertwined together, especially early on in my career. And if that's how it is for you, then that's great too. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. However you're balancing your life right now, there's nothing wrong with it unless you're neglecting something. If you're neglecting your family, if you're neglecting your love life, if you're neglecting your career, then, you know, there might be a problem. And by neglecting your career, I'm meaning like you're not even showing up for work. That's a problem. So figure out what's important, figure out what your goals are and where your focus is, and then find that balance. You know, I'm doing a whole lot of babbling here to simply say that. And I'm not trying to downplay it or, you know, give it some kind of mediocre answer. It's difficult. Life can be difficult. You just got to take the time to sit back and think about it. And a lot of times you can start figuring out how you need to attack something by figuring out what's important. You know, if you're spending a lot of time with your career and you're, you know, trying to figure out how you can split that time up evenly with your family or your love life, you're gonna have to take some of that percentage away from the career. There's no two ways about it. I was speaking with someone not long ago, and we were talking about, well, I'll say we were talking about, I asked him a question. I said, what is the most expensive thing in our lives? So I'll ask you the same thing. What's the most expensive thing in your life? Now that you thought about it for a second, I'll give you my answer for it. When I ask you what the most expensive thing in your life is, I'm not asking about an object or how much money's in your bank account. It's not what I'm talking about. The most expensive thing, in my opinion, in any of our lives is time. Time is the most expensive thing in our lives. And I only say that because it's the one thing in our lives that there's only a finite amount of. There's no getting more of it. You can't earn more. You can't buy more. Once you spend it, it's gone. That makes it pretty expensive. You know, none of us know how long we're going to be here. None of us know when our expiration date is going to come up. So what are you spending your time on? You know, are you throwing your time away? Are you wasting that time? Are you wasting this expensive commodity that you will never get more of? Are you spending that commodity? Are you spending it frivolously? You know, are you spending it in places that you really shouldn't? I say shouldn't. Are you spending it on something that's useless to you? You know, Are you spending too much of that time at work? Are you spending too much of that time on your love life? Where are you spending it? You're not going to get any more of it. You've only got so much, and you don't get to know how much you got. And that's kind of the messed up part. You don't know how much you got, so you don't know when you're going to run out. There's no gauge on it. I know a lot of days we all look at our gas gauges and you see it getting close to the E going, okay, well, I know when it gets to the E, I got about 50 miles before it runs completely out of gas. You don't get that with time. Once it's gone, it's gone. So if you stop and think about that for a second, it helps you put that balance in check a little bit, kind of helps you figure out what's more important. What would you rather spend that finite commodity of time on? Is it your love life? Is it your family? Is it your career? I don't know. I can't make that decision for you. That's something you got to make for yourself. Balance is something that is particular to each and every individual. It's very specific. I don't know your life. You don't know mine. So our balance and our ranking system for family and career and love life, it's not going to be the same. So figure it out. It's not hard. If you're sitting here listening to that thinking, well, obviously it is, or I wouldn't be, asking. I get it, but it's not hard. What do you want? What do you want out of your life? Where is your focus? What's most important to you right now? The rest is easy. Simple math. You're the only one that can do it, because I don't get to see the problem. So there you go, guys. I know it wasn't very long, and if I just kind of babbled and you kind of lost focus or decided not to tune out, I apologize. But again, this is one of these topics where we're kind of having a one-sided conversation. It's me talking to you. You don't get to talk back. So it's a little difficult at times to keep myself on track. But I hope I was able to help. Hope somewhere in there and all the ramblings that I did, you were able to pull something away from it that'll help you. If so, that's awesome. If not, maybe it wasn't meant for you. And that's okay too. So until next time, guys, I hope everything goes well. I hope you're doing well. And we're picking it back up. So stick with us and we're getting back at it. All right. Be safe, guys. Later.